That's about 10%. So let me just say this, that this side has a lot of work to do, Maruf. How do you look at the debate?
Absolutely.
So far?
In fact, at the cost, I'm going to veer a bit away from Mr. Tiwari because I think all the cannon fire is going on to you. So I give you a bit of a breather. But Mr. Parthasarathi sir, you've made two points to which I wish to ask you to elaborate a bit more. You've said we have encountered Chinese aggressive activity either on the LOC or in the high seas, i.e. South China Sea, because the Ministry of Defense is on the back foot or too passive. But as far as I understood, our policy towards China is by and large handled by the Foreign Office. The MOD, even on the LOC, is restricted to a great deal by the MEA, and the MEA takes credit for the fact that we don't fire shots on the LAC like we fire shots on the LOC. What's your response?
Look, ultimately, right now on this issue, the MOD is ahead of MEA on these trilateral exercises. But generally speaking, Maruf, you know, we have to be very, very clear. There has to be a policy of engagement to go in hand with hand in hand with a policy of containment. I mean, China is containing us, for God's sake. All I am saying is that in paying back China in its own coin, whether it is our relations with Vietnam, the inhibitions with which we have been moving towards Japan, the whole thing of having a trilateral with the United States in this, to me is totally defensive and counterproductive. China has to be responded to not aggressively, but assertively.
Right. Okay. Okay, one second. Let's get the next interjection in right now. Let's get the panelists in. Let's accept one fact on this debate. Everyone's bungled big time. I agree. Let's not make it a UP-NDA debate because I can take pot shots at anyone. Let's remember, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, how you bungled big time during Kargil. I don't like reminding you about it. I really don't want to. And I'm sure you also don't like to be reminded about it.
I differ with you, but I will keep quiet.
But I remember that George Fernandez was the then defense minister. He made an initial statement saying Nawaz Sharif and the ISI were not in know of the intrusions. And then he had to clarify his statement. So the point here is we don't do the tough talking. There seems to be
I want to clarify one thing.
There seems to be.
It is very important on Pakistan. Indian elite and political parties have grossly misread Nawaz Sharif. He was briefed by the GHQ, he was
precisely,
briefed by,
Mr.
and today he is a greater ally of the Lashkar-e-Taiba than the army.
Precisely, and which is why today I said this earlier, that I want to know the need for our implicit and undying faith in the Pakistani state. We have a question from Sauradeep on this side. Go ahead, Sauradeep.
My question is to Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad. In your introduction, you said that our policy vis-a-vis our neighbors hasn't been particularly good. You mentioned Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, and Pakistan. What you didn't mention is Bangladesh, where I think the BJP is currently blocking the land boundary agreement, which would be a landmark achievement. Now, my question is this. Even if we are giving away 10,000 acres to Bangladesh, how does it really matter when the question is about the citizenship rights of 52,000 people living in no man's land, when the NDA government had identified that human life trumps all other values when you negotiated with terrorists in Kandahar to save Indian citizens? My question is, if the opposition sabotages foreign policy purely for political gain, how is it legitimate to then criticize?
Who's playing politics, BJP or Mamta? Good point. From Sauradeep to Ravi Shankar Prasad.
I'm happy you have asked me this question. We are all keenly concerned that we must have good relations with Bangladesh. But you must understand that this exchange of enclave is the last option available with us. Last option. When we are pursuing that, are we getting three clear assurances from Bangladesh? Number one, that they will not promote terrorism against India in cohort with ISI on the soils of Bangladesh, which is not a case presently. The present government is good, but there is no formal agreement. Number two, the large-scale infiltration of Bangladesh people into India, which has been commented also by the Supreme Court, is it going to be completely stopped? Is it going to stop completely? You must understand that foreign policy is what? We have created Bangladesh, we have love and respect for Bangladesh. But when you are going to do so, at least there must be proper commitment in place to ensure that these allied problems do not arise. That's point number one. Point number two is, we are not opposed in principle, but we are saying, take the consent of the people of Bengal, the leaders particularly, all the party, and also Assam, which are going to be seriously impacted. That's all we have said. We are not opposed in principle as far as the agreement is concerned.
Okay, one sec. Count. No, one sec. We're not. I'm letting in a counter interjection come in, but it's coming from Rajul to this side. Rajul.
I'd just like to respond to Thami, who raised a couple of questions about what I said earlier about the Indian diaspora. You're talking about protecting people everywhere, fine, but what about Sri Lanka? I think it's pretty much universally accepted that our creation of the LTTE was one of the biggest mistakes we made. At the same time, would you say that it's all right to kill Tamils or not kill Tamils when they are killing the Sinhalese government? I mean, we have to take into account the fact that Indians will also behave in a certain way in certain situations, and India as a country cannot just say that these people are ethnically the same race as us, and therefore we are bound to protect them, no matter what their political views or stance. If they are promoting terror, I think all countries have a responsibility to act against terror. Moreover, one sec. I'd just like to include this. I'd like to add to Mr. Brahmachalani, and I'd like to ask him a question. When you're talking of Maldives and how they can give us a kick in the face and get away with it, I don't think India is trying to create an environment of fear. I mean, we're trying to get along with our neighbors. It's not a question of whether they can get away with insulting us. It's not a question of trading insults here, which is what seems to be happening here a bit between the UPA and the NDA.
Rajul asked the question to Brahma Chalani and Tehmi, and I think they should have the first right to respond to this. Tehmi first, and then Brahma Chalani. Dr. Chalani, the young man has accused you of pugilism, and you need to respond to him straight after that. Tehmi, go ahead.
Yeah, so first thing about the LTTE thing, we're not just talking about specifically in Sri Lanka, though we concede the fact, but what we are talking about is the protection of the Indian diaspora everywhere, because we know, as Mr. Tiwari mentioned, there are 6 million Indian origin expats in the Middle East. So when our foreign policy should be such that we should know when which measure is required. Just in answer to that, you just mentioned Maldives. Either we are talking about playing a big brother and undermining the importance of everyone else, or we'll just completely shift when our the power balance is not in our favor. Just one sec, let me finish that. When the power balance is not in our favor, we will completely become timid, and we will act as a soft kitten, and we're not going to put any diplomatic pressure anywhere. What we need to find, our foreign policy needs to be such, our foreign policy needs to be such that we find a balance, a critical balance between being an oppressor and being a diplomat.
That's precisely the point, and haven't we found that balance?
Brahma Chalani, please.
May I just ask her a question? You know, you make a very interesting point. Recently and unfortunately, we lost some people, some Indians of Gujarati origin in a terrorist outrage in Nairobi. Do you think India should have sent its forces into Kenya? And do you think that Kenya should have stopped talking to Sudan, which they didn't do, because the Al-Shabaab terrorists came from Sudan?
Tehmi, would you like to respond to
Yes, sir, that's exactly
Question, if I can interrupt.
that's exactly what I was talking about.
Don't get offended by the reference to Gujarat. I mean, that was inadvertent.
I'm least about Gujarat.
Don't be so sensitive. Come on.
Manish, least about Gujarat. I was throwing loaded question for her, but go ahead.
Tehmi, I
Yes,
think
sir.
you're getting covering fire from the deputy leader of the opposition, whereas you are completely capable of replying on your own. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, sir, that's exactly what I was talking about, that when Indian origin people in Nairobi are killed, we do not immediately send our troops inside, because that is a foreign policy failure. We need to find a better way of putting diplomatic pressure and trying to enforce safety of Indians wherever they are. This is what I'm talking about. Either we talk about pushing forces inside, or we take a complete backstep and not respond at all. We need to find a middle way.
Okay, now we are getting into counter questions. Ravi Shankar Prasad had a question on this side. You had a question, you said?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, Mr. Parsati, I have a question to you. Why a country of the size of India not using its economic might in the pursuit of management of foreign policy? There is a lot of Chinese investment in India. China needs those investment. China needs India's market. Vice versa. Indians are also there in business. Why this economic instrument is not being properly used and exploited as far as pursuit of India's interests is concerned?
I think there are two issues in this. One is the core security area, which is our communications. The Chinese presence in our communications sector is dangerous for national security.
I totally agree with you.
We allowed
Dangerous.
them in.
But the fact of the matter is that post-liberalization, we have left the electronics industry to languish here. Only now has the National Manufacturing Council come up with proposals to develop even a semiconductor manufacturing capability in
sir,
this
did we-
country. But we should resist American pressures on this. We should resist Chinese pressures. When it comes to building strategic industries, whether defense, whether communications, I will go and have supper with the devil if I have to do it for my country.
Okay, Mr. Patsari, now 1 second. Maruf, please.
Well, sir, I just want to bring out a couple of points. One is in response to a point that Rajul made earlier. You said the first issue was about Sri Lanka. You said, should we intervene every time something happens in Sri Lanka? I mean, basically, we're talking of military force. But we'd lost an opportunity in Sri Lanka when they offered us the first opportunity to build the Hambantota port. And we allowed the Chinese to come in and then...
Sri Lanka, and we did send in the IPKF.
Pardon me?
We also did goof up in Sri
Yeah,
Lanka
well,
when we intervened at the long
IPKF
time.
was 87, Hambantota port was 2 decades later. The point at issue is that you went into Sri Lanka with the IPKF, and Mr. Parthasarathi is a veteran of that time, but the fact of the matter is that we completely misread the situation. Having done that, how Sri Lanka has handled the insurgency, but looking at the economic dimension, we missed out there. We missed out even an opportunity that came up in Burma, Myanmar. Once again, both occasions.
But
our
for
Foreign
example,
Office-
we are collaborating with Iran on the Chabahar port. So I mean,
Chabahar
one can
port is
always.
Chabahar port. But anyway, going back to the other point, Mr. Tiwari. Now, this is the question for
May I
you.
come in for a moment? Sorry to interrupt. But you know, the interesting thing on Myanmar is that when the relief operation after Cyclone Nargis took place, the only security forces which were allowed into Myanmar were Indian security forces. And that is because of the sterling work which Mr. Parthasarathi and his colleagues did from 1993 onwards to build that trust with Myanmar. I think
Yes,
that was...
I want to,
Indeed.
let's go back
But-
to the interjection round. We have more interjections coming in from this side. Mr. Please, 1 second, Maruf, Maruf, 1 second.
I need half a minute here.
Brahma Chalani hasn't yet got a
I need
chance
half
to
a minute
respond.
here just to say that we don't always differ in foreign policy.
Well, I'm
as
sure
far as
you don't.
Myanmar is concerned, Mr. Tiwari has a very
I'm
valid
sure you
point.
don't.
In containing many of the extremist elements active in Northeast, even the military government of Myanmar has done a very good job in protecting India's interests.
How can you have one approach when it comes to domestic compulsions with some neighbors, but on Pakistan, I want to know which prism we are looking at the whole issue through.
When India was weak economically in the 1970s and 1980s, no neighbor of India would dare to mess with India, right? How is it that today, when we are so much stronger economically and also militarily, that small neighbors and the two known adversaries have stepped up their pressures on India? Why?